What's good, everybody? It's Andy, and I am here at one of my favorite places in Dallas, Kinetic Chain, and I am standing next to Dr. Webster, who I met through my past in the CrossFit community and trying to help some of our members and athletes find a spot that they could take care of any kind of issues they were having while they were training for a specific event or even on their day-to-day. And I came in, had some stuff done, and I was like, this is legit. These guys know what they're doing. Not only does he have a staff that has the skill set to take care of what they need to take care of, but they also have the knowledge because they're all athletes. So anytime you come in here, sometimes you go to the doctor and they ask you what's going on. You have no idea how to explain it. You just know something's wrong. When you come in, start talking about it just a little bit, show them where it's at, clicks with them right away. They start attacking the issue and they get you taken care of. The reason why we're here today is to talk about a few things specific to cycling, but this can also carry over into your day-to-day because we spend so much time in the seated position. If you think about it, we wake up in the morning, sit down, eat breakfast, get in the car, sit in the car, drive to work. A lot of us have desk jobs. We sit at work the entire day, then get in the car and drive back home, sit down and have dinner, sit down by the TV and watch TV, or sit down and read a book and relax, and then you go to sleep. So we spend most of our time in that seated position, and that also carries over into cycling. We're always hunched over, hips are real tight, hips are closed. So a lot of times people don't really think about what they can do to help with their pre-work and post-work as far as riding the bike. Because all we do is we get in the car, drive straight to the trailhead after work, got to sneak that ride in, then drive straight home. So we don't do a whole lot of stuff prior to getting on the bike or go home and kind of stretch or anything like that. So here's some stuff that Dr. Webster is going to go over. Things that you could do at the house, very simple. Tell us what you can do.
All right. We're going to address the kind of three major areas pretty simply. And if you start to find any dysfunction or tension or kind of malady when you're working on any of this stuff, well, it probably shows that there's something that you need to address. But the intention is to give you things that you can do kind of proactively, not to show up so that you have to find that you actually are tweaked or something, but that actually build into ultimately creating and allowing you to be resilient against what it is that you are doing in your daily life and also competitive or athletically. Also allowing things to progress in a strength and a recruitment patterning standpoint. So we'll go through some of that stuff out in the functional area and make sure that we can explain it enough. Obviously questions we can answer going forward, but this will be some building blocks into some greater things.
Awesome. We're going to head out into the training room, go over some demonstrations, and show you what we're talking about.
All right, so let's talk about, we're going to go kind of eyeballs down as we start here. We're going to start with the neck. It's pretty obvious in a seated position and in this anterior position, whether we're on a bike or we're at the office, you get kind of stuck forward. And so what we want to do with the neck is we want to work kind of some of the patterning and the strengthening of the small muscles that don't get recruited very often. And so we got two things that we can do here, neither of which should cause any discomfort. So if you happen to start this and you have neck tightness, you have neck tightness, and you can do a certain range of motion that might be less than what I'm going to show, well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be to the nth degree. If you're starting to cause discomfort in another area, in all honesty, if you really feel like you're working really hard to do this, you're probably doing it a little bit too hard or doing it wrong, okay? And so the first one I like to say is kind of this neck sit-up. But there's some specifics to it of how we need to do this appropriately. And before I lay down and show you, effectively we want to take this head, I'll exaggerate, from this forward position. We want to make a face that only a mother could love, which is we're going to pack that chin. So if you can give yourself that double chin, you're probably in the right position there. And then after we have that chin packed, we're going to actually do that little sit-up. But the tendencies and the miscues here are going to be that if, as we come up, we don't keep our chin packed backwards, then we're going to recruit the big muscles on the outside. If we do this, we can strengthen up what's called our deep neck flexor, and it's not a muscle that you ever will see. So I'll give you a quick for instance. Comfortably laying, you're going to push down just a little bit into your bed, your table, wherever you are, just to get that double chin. You're going to keep that position and you're going to sit up. Now, you'll see yourself bobblehead a little. It's like, I'm shaking. But none of the big muscles are really firing. If you feel the big muscles firing, you're probably doing it wrong. And so, as much as it's interesting to say, do it with intention, but not trying to like recruit. You're not like doing this and like trying to get big. You just, and relax. And then you reset and you do it again. About a 5-second hold. Do it a few times. If you feel like you're straining, you're probably fatiguing, and it can happen. Fatigue can happen after 2 or 3 reps when you first start this. I usually will do that probably twice a day, in the morning and at night in my bed. If you do that, it really helps a lot with the neck. The next one is in the cervical spine and in the upper back. You can start to tie those two movement patterns together. And so what we want to make sure that we can do is have individual movement of the neck from the shoulders. And most of us, if we really look at ourselves in the mirror and have like a check, you'll see that, and I'll exaggerate this, you start to kind of move your shoulders with your neck. And that's a pattern that shouldn't happen. And so what we want to do is repattern the system away from that. And so again, it will be in a laying position, but effectively, we're going to engage between the shoulder blades, and then we're going to look towards our high hand. And again, I'll demo this. So this one, if you don't have this much range of motion, well, you can put something under. So as long as you can start to push down and that engages between your shoulder blades, you're doing something right. So you engage there, leave your head supported, turn towards the high hand, relax. Engage between your shoulder blades, turn towards the high hand, and relax. And if you are tight, this can actually progress the range. The first one, you might go to here, and then if you go farther, it hurts, but then that you relax, you do it again, you get a little further without any discomfort. Let discomfort guide you. It's just like a neck sit-up. You only go before there's major tension. I don't want to irritate something. I want to progress something. And you should see that ability to move improving as you do your reps. I'll do about 5 reps in the morning and then 5 reps at night of this one as well. All right, so the next section is basically, here to here in the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is really important because, again, sitting at a desk or riding, we're in a flex position. So we don't want to necessarily have to try to harp on extension of the thoracic spine, but we do want to be able to get some rotation of the thoracic spine. Those little muscles around the spine do just as much to keep that curve healthy as anything else. And so this one, I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it. So if you happen to have like a band, you can do this a certain way. If you don't, you can still get the job done. And so what we'll do is, without the band first, is we are going to work a pure thoracic rotation. So we got to take the lower back out of the equation in this one. And so what we'll do is we'll get down to a comfortable position. We are going to put our arm between our legs. And now what we're going to do is we're basically going to put our arm in our low back or behind our head, however you feel comfortable, and we're just going to rotate open. So that shouldn't cramp any of the muscles. It shouldn't be overstraining. Changing the position from here to here as you rotate should allow us to do that comfortably. And again, it's enough fighting against your own imbalances to actually be pretty fatiguing. So that one, I wouldn't do more than 10 reps at a time. And definitely make sure then you switch and you do both sides. The next one is working the rib muscles. The rib muscles here is called serratus anterior. It's very important in cycling. In being able to brace, it holds your shoulder blade kind of in that powerful position where you need to be. And it so oftentimes is lost. And when that stuff in here gets weak or shuts off, then we start to wing our shoulder blades, and that's when we really develop those knots behind our shoulder that a lot of us deal with. And so to do this without banded assistance, it's basically a push-up plus. And so what we want to do is get into a good push-up position, and all you're going to do is extend down. Now, that serratus is what pulls my shoulder blades around my rib cage. You'll feel this stretching behind your shoulder blades, but hopefully you can actually feel it activating the rib muscles here in front of your lat. Now, little add-on. With a band, I want to help the rotation, because if you guys need to do this and get stronger, that's one thing. If you're just like a normal person that just wants to feel the movement, it's the same deal, but we wrap this band around so it's actually pulling myself into that rotated position. It just adds a little help. It really helps you get to that end range of motion. So exact same setup, elbow between, the band is kind of pulling us open. That's a good one. If you have a band, you can do the other position and kind of make it almost simpler. Instead of the push-up going down, now we're here, arms straight. Same thing. This way we're just taking a lot of the other stuff out. The push-up plus is absolutely a harder move, but this one is engaging that serratus to move just like we talked about right around the rib cage. Okay, so last section, there's much more areas of the body that we can address, but just to hit the big primary movers, hip. Hip, flex position, gets kind of stuck. You're powerful, especially in cycling, through a limited range. You don't get up into extension at all. So we want to make sure that we do a few things through here to recruit some of the primary movers, but also to prep the system to be able to get out of that kind of stuck, gummed up, hip flexed position here. So just randomly, there's a few different options here for rolling the front of the hip, which I feel is the most important. And I do not care. It can look really cool. It can be expensive. It can be cheap. Whatever, pick your poison. You can use like a dough roller at home. It does not matter. And so, just for sake of showing, we'll just grab one. And what I want to do is this front of the hip, your hip bone in the front here, this section is such an important thing. It's called TFL, tensor fascia lata. We want to mobilize this probably more than anything else. The fibers of the TFL do attach, and that is part of the IT band. And so if we can get this nice and supple, it can help us with some extension and also keep it so that our hip moves and you can be able to just be mobile in this area. So to roll it, all you do is you basically just come down and you roll out. Now you'll see a lot of people will try to devastate themselves when it comes to foam rolling. I always say you should foam roll at an intensity to loosen a tissue, and you can kind of pin a little spot if the muscle's contracting, or if you rolled the same area 2 hours later in the same way it feels bruised, you did it too hard. It's just to create some flushing or some temporary mobility in these areas. So I always will start by just addressing and finding a little bit of spots here and pinning or just kind of moving. After we loosen up the TFL, I want to loosen up this whole front complex of the quad. Someone much smarter than I have come up with what they call the couch stretch. And so we will use a bench, a couch, something. We'll have something soft for my knee to sit on. And what we're gonna do is put our leg up on something, and we're just staying organized. The cues, the mistakes are if as you're trying to stretch this whole big quad here, if you're like extended and just in this really bad position, again, don't do that. Flex here, keep your midline neutral, and then as you get more flexible, you can come up into this. This is a great stretch, and then we progress. Once that's loosened up pretty nicely, we'll progress forward, and now we're trying to push the hip down, as this will pull a little bit differently through this whole complex in here. And it's patient, it's conversational intensity, it's not causing pain. This is locked in to the point where you can damage tissue if you try to go too hard, too fast. And then the last thing is I want to use not just a neutral. This is where we're powerful. I want to get internal, I want to get external, and I want to fire up the glute. This is a powerhouse. This is a big muscle. In many of us, we forget how to use this thing. And so this is a good movement to learn how to create full extension, getting out of the seated position, and power in both internal and external rotation. So we will basically go to wherever it's comfortable. You're always going to probably be leaned a little to the side, but a little internal rotation here, a little external rotation here. You're going to basically just come up, control down, touch your butt, come up, control down. You'll feel different stretches in different places where it's tight. At the top, the right hip, because it's a little bit internally inclined, it's not pinching, but I feel like it's loosening itself up. So I'll do a few reps there. Come out of it. And we're just working, feeling a lot. The activation to pull you up is coming from the glutes. Doing about 5 to 10 reps, 2 or 3 sets. You'll feel what I'm talking about. It's a great way of loosening, activating, and getting mobility through not just stuck here, a little bit internal, a little external, and having that functionality in the hip to be resilient against those things.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in and sticking around. I hope you learned something valuable, something that you could use for yourself at the house. Want to thank Dr. Webster for his time. If you guys want to reach out to him with any questions or want to find out where the clinic is,
the website is pretty all encompassing. We have online scheduling, but more important most of the time, if you have questions that you'd like answered, we can set up a phone call. We can field that information and stuff like that. The one thing to note is that we don't spell our kinetic chain correctly. So it has 2 K's in it, and
it's
so
uniquely
it's
spelled.
kineticchain.com. Check that out, and we can field the phone calls and questions as they come. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.